question. I've seen a lot on Twitter about everybody has their own opinion on like what he's actually trying to do, right? Some people are like they're tanking the market on purpose to get the debt yield down. Can you speak on this theory? I think Besant has been in a few interviews talking about it.
Yeah. So what are they talking about? So here's the thing. America owes people a lot of money. Okay. We owe, oh my gosh, I want to say maybe $35 trillion to other people. Now it's important to understand who are those other people and why did that happen?
Yeah.
So let's just say the five of us are running America. We all go off into our own separate rooms and, we come back with a plan. And Andrew, you're like, I want to spend $1 billion on defense. And then, Mark says, I want to spend $1 billion on healthcare. And I say, I want to spend, $2 billion on Social Security or whatever. And we tally it all up, right? And we're like, okay, to run America is going to cost $10 billion. How are we going to get that money? And, ever since like 1913,
it's a GoFundMe.
The answer is we're going to go to all the individuals in the United States to pay for it. By the way, just so you guys know, before 1913, okay, we had 120 odd years where all of that money, that $10 billion, whatever that number was at the time, it was all generated via tariffs. Okay, it was outside folks paying into to have the right to be in the United States. Then we would take that money and we would pay for healthcare, we would pay for Social Security, we would pay for military, we did all that stuff. Okay, so anyways, fine. So here we are. But you add up all the amount of taxes we raise, and it only is $8 billion. So what do? You go and you borrow from somebody who's willing to lend you $2 billion, right? So
just to clarify, like that borrowing doesn't necessarily mean a bank. People can buy bonds. They can buy these treasury bonds. And isn't that a similar thing?
So what happens is, okay, we're like, okay, shit, we need to come up with $2 billion. Where do we get it? So what happens is the United States Treasury is allowed by law to then go into the market. Okay, I'll explain what that means in a second. And sell an IOU. Mm-hmm. Hey, this IOU is backed by the United States government, full faith and fidelity of all of the assets that we own. Give me $2 billion. I'm going to take it. I'm going to fund this deficit and I'm going to spend my $10 billion this year. We've been doing that basically forever. Add it all up now, we're at 30 some odd trillion dollars. Okay. Now, what is the problem with that? Well, that is a colossal interest rate payment. Imagine that you take out now a credit card every year, max it out. At some point, you're going to have an enormous interest payment, right? And that is dictated by the interest rate that is tied to the credit card that you have. It's the exact same thing for the United States government. We have 30 some odd trillion of debt, and we have a really high APR.
Yeah, the APR is what right now?
Well, I think the blended is, I want to say like 5-6%, let's say. So, you're talking trillions of dollars in interest, okay? Which is a problem. So on top of that, these credit cards, assuming you have this credit card, it expires and you got to go and apply for a new one. Mm-hmm. That's what every year. So right now in this year, America has $6 trillion of credit that is expiring that we don't have the money to pay for. So what do we need to do? We need to re-borrow that money.
So issue more bonds.
So we have to sell bonds. So who are the buyers? The buyers are all these people around the world, central banks, pension plans.
Also us.
Yeah.
So yes, but asterisks. The thing that America is, again, I go back to, like, we are the star of the show, okay? Everybody is levered to the United States. Everybody. What does that mean? If you go to Japan is way deeper in debt than we are. They have 2 times as much debt as we do relative to our GDP, relative to the amount of revenue that we make. And you would say, well, how's that possible? When Japan finances their debt, The overwhelming majority of the people that are supporting Japan are the Japanese. Japanese companies, Japanese pension funds, Japanese individuals, your mom, your dad, buying the Japanese bonds. In America, it's not that. It's about a third are Americans, but 2/3 are everywhere. Okay, it's like the Saudi Aramco, it's Shell, it's Novartis, it's the
China.
Central Bank of Lesotho, it's China. China owns almost $1 trillion of our debt. So the whole point is, if you can bring the cost of borrowing down, we save ourselves a lot of money. We make the headache much smaller. Now, here's a huge problem that happened at the end of Biden.
Real quick, before you say that. So essentially, if we can lower the APR, if we can lower the interest payment, then at the end of every year, the money that we owe is much less, and then we can start chipping away at the principal instead of just paying the interest.
There you go.
Another important thing to understand is the more people buy treasuries, the lower the interest payment is on those treasuries. The less people that are buying treasuries, the higher it goes. Right?
Exactly. This is like this.
So if you can, some people will say, if you can scare people in the equities market, meaning just the stocks, right? If you can scare them about stocks, if you can create uncertainty in the stock market,
then they go buy treasuries.
People go, I just need some security. I need something back with the full, support and fidelity of the U.S. government. I need treasuries. They start dumping all that money into treasuries. You can reduce that yield, which is that interest payment. Now, before you move on, I just want to ask one question. We initially, when this was mentioned, I guess a couple of days ago by Trump, you saw that yield go down almost like a point, right? Or at least it clicked.
It was enormous. We went from like 450. Like, I was worried that it could go to 5. Instead, when Trump said, guys, I'm doing this, I'm serious, it went from 450 to like 420. And then it went to 4. And then it went to like 3. 90 something, and now it's right around back at 4.
Now, when it started to go back up again, some people thought that a big holder of U.S. treasuries, i.e. like a China or one of the other countries or companies they were talking about, purposely sold treasuries
to flood the treasury market,
and then increase that the yield, that interest payment again. Remember, the more that they sell, the more we got to pay out. So it's a form of eco-terrorism.
Is
that bullshit or true?
I think it's bullshit, and I'll tell you why. There is no amount of money that you could spend that a country has in U.S. treasuries to sustain that kind of price manipulation in a market that big.
Got it. So it might be initial, but eventually it would start to...
Could you puke it out? Like, meaning the thing is, like...
Got it.
These markets are extremely efficient. Like, in betting, like sports betting, I used to be a big sports bettor. Like, these guys are all sharps, okay?
Yeah.
They know the line.
They know the edge.
You're not getting an advantage over one day, over 5 hours. Like, that's...
Got it. So it would be China literally unloading the $1 trillion in bonds that they have.
They wouldn't do that.
And they wouldn't do it. Of course, there's probably some sort of like competitive advantage they have owning that type of